Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's devotional. A little side note, we're set to do the sacred Triduum. We have enough people who have said yes, both certainly and then numerous ones that want to be there but don't want to be that anchor point that if something comes up, they can't make it. So just know that we're on. And this offering that will be Last Supper, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter morning. There's no need to attend all four, other than if you gave me your word, you'd be there so that we have at least a contingency of people. And it's free. So if you know anyone in your community that is feeling isolated, and because they're in their homes or because they're going through something, just know you're welcome to spread the word and give the links to them. I'll give all four links up front in the beginning of next week. So feel free to share it with anyone. You can share it through your social media. You can share it through your faith community, through your meditation community, through women's and men's circles, however you wish to share it. While I'll be putting out in the newsletter ways to prepare so that you have the materials to participate, it won't prohibit someone who doesn't have the materials from gaining some joy from being a part of it. So feel free and encouraged to share with anybody. I know that there are many who would have gone to a physical celebration of these powerful events and spiritual experiences who maybe can't do it, maybe don't even have access via the internet to be able to do that, and know that they are welcome for free. All right, let's jump in. I have no doubt that you are probably aware of this passage that I alluded to in chapter 2 of Mark's Gospel about wine and wineskins. And if you're not, that's okay too. Before I move into it, I actually want to say something as a theologian. And this passage is a little bit cryptic in where it falls in Mark's Gospel. And it's chapter 2, so it's early on. And the allusion to it isn't super clear because Jesus is talking about fasting, and it seems when you read it that it might not logically flow from the passage before it or lead into the passage after it. And some people might try to draw lines of continuity, that there's a spiritual reason that Jesus said things in this order. And as a historical critical theologian and a metaphorical theologian and an anagogical theologian, I'd like to encourage you to take a look at these passages as simply a string of anecdotes that are placed together as the writer felt moved to, whether it was serving the community that he knew, whether it was just an inner inspiration, without holding fast to the idea that Jesus meant them to be in this order for a particular reason. So Spirit can guide us in the moment, right? Spirit can open us up and lead us to say or do things that really feel motivated in that time and in that place. And it serves that time and place. But it may not have the external logic to it that we would do it the same way 10 years from there or 20 years from there. So I look at this as kind of a freestanding anecdote and not a response to what came before it or a lead into what comes after it. I thought my phone was off. Hold on just a moment. Okay. So the passage goes like this. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. Otherwise, the new piece will pull away from the old, making the tear worse. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins. This is a bit obvious, right? My own inspiration for this devotional points to the desire we have as human beings for qualities that transcend our physicality. And this morning, I'm going to point towards freedom. Yesterday, I spoke towards truth. I could point towards love, enduring peace, internal joy. These are all qualities that we long for, and the longing itself leads us to believe that it's possible for them to be fulfilled. So this morning, I'm going to point towards freedom. I 100% believe that part of our evolution process as a species and part of our enlightenment process as an individual is that we are meant to be free. And in that freedom, we have all the other qualities. And yet, in our search for freedom, in our desired acquisition of freedom, we do the very thing oftentimes that limits freedom. Because freedom is freedom. Freedom can't be bound, right? And if I were to take an old wineskin, which is a binding, a certain way of being, that's old, and try to put freedom in it, I'm trying to capture something that is new, dynamic, and organic that can't be bound in something that is old. So this morning's devotional is the invitation from Jesus, from the core of your own being, from spirit, from me, to surrender into your desire for freedom as a pathless path, as one that is not only going to push you to the edge of your comfort zone, but that is going to actually recreate you over and over and over again. And steady yourself for that kind of recreated way of being. Let go, either once and for all or as a continual process of letting go, the ways that you know and do not know wherein you try to capture freedom, have freedom, be freedom, acquire freedom, become free. Because all of them will continually be broken open in the recreation process. And as we surrender into this recreation process, what we find is we find ourselves freer and freer, but not in the ways that we thought we could define it. Rather, in the ways that unravel us into the path of the unknown with certainty. That we stand as part of the chaos with clarity, but not a clarity that binds the chaos, not a certainty that makes the unknown known. This is the path of wholeness, if you will. I'm going to give you a very short example that is not spiritual bound in this bigger sense, but spiritual bound in its own way. A few years back, I tore the tendon in my calf. And as an entrepreneur, I've never had health insurance as an entrepreneur. It's just not something that has worked in my own economic lay of the land. Plus, most of the modalities that I use are very holistic and alternative and non-traditional anyway. And I have found my healthcare has always been provided for in moments of need. Well, a tear in your tendon It's kind of a Western medical thing. And I couldn't do any of the Western options because I didn't have health insurance. So, what I decided to do, because I had crutches, and after using the crutches for 1 day or 2 days, I was like, this is not going to work for me. I'm just not a crutch person. I thought, there's got to be a way I can walk from my wholeness that I am, but I'm not it fully. And I concentrated on walking from my subtle energy that was out about 2 or 3 feet from my body. That this aspect of the subtle energy bodies was my anchor point of where I walked from, instead of depending in an isolated way in the mechanism of my calves and their physical makeup. And when I concentrated on walking from this more subtle energy, I found that I was capable of walking without a limp until it healed fully, I think in about 8 weeks. This is an example of walking into the recreated part of our being, right? Because there's a great unknown there, and yet there's a little thread of certainty into which we surrender. My surrender with the calf was a moment by moment continual remembrance and opening into that larger energy of my own being. So let's go ahead and do a devotional that taps us into this larger sense of our being as a metaphor of becoming a new wineskin, so that new wine can actually be held in an intoxicating way in the cells of our being. I invite you to close your eyes and bring your awareness to the verticality of who you are. This kind of uprightness. You can focus on the spine if you want, going to the crown of the head, or the feet going to the crown. And now, keeping your awareness on this verticality, notice that there is an energy to it. You can become aware of it as a column of light or as a vibrating frequency, but let light be involved in some way. Color can be too, pulsing can be too, but let light definitely be part of what you experience. And I'd like you to become aware of how this light moves outward through your physical body, increasing your awareness that you as a physical being are a column of light. Let this be real as you possibly can become aware of. And now, in this awareness, notice if you can, this vertical column of you is more than your physical body. Clearly tap into, as broadly as you can, your subtle energy. It doesn't radiate out from your physicality. It rather informs your physicality. But if that's too difficult a jump for your awareness, become aware of it radiating out from what is most dense. Get yourself in touch and notice how far it spills out in every direction. And there's no right or wrong, better or worse. Don't push on what you're capable of. Notice if it's stronger out your back or out your front. Notice if it fills the room or goes beyond or just goes a fraction beyond the physical body. There's no right or wrong. And now let yourself, wherever that lands for you, rest into this larger sense of your being. Move away from attention on the physical and extending outward, and rest on the outward part, almost like you're more there than you are in your physical body. It is from these subtle realms that the physical emerges as a form and an expression. It's a little like the shift of thinking the sun moves around the earth to find the earth moves around the sun. And as we begin to end this short devotional, I'd like to invite you to play with this today. See if you can grow your ability and awareness to walk from this more subtle part of you. It involves the physical, it's interwoven, but it's not bound by. See if you can notice little shifts where thought moves to insight, heart moves to compassion, body moves fluidly. Taste what sorts of freedom and recreation happen. Notice the difference between being bound by mind, by memory, by physical limitation, versus being unbound by the subtle aspects of your being, and the physicality simply being a little dance and expression of those in your own individual way. With that, I invite you to wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. Take a big deep breath. Exhale. And open the eyes. Have a great day, everyone. Blessings.